Why don't we introduce our guests?
Yes. So Dakota Riley with Depend on Dakota. I'm adding everybody's spotlight. There we go. So now you can see the three of us. Welcome. Thank you for coming on to the growth call with us today.
No, I appreciate you having me. Looking forward to it.
Thank you.
So Dakota, tell us a little bit about yourself, where you are, where you started.
Yeah, I mean, I think the best way is I'd love to kind of tell where I'm at now in the past couple years of major growth, just so that I can bring you back to where I was and know that absolutely anything is possible. I mean, my real growth started back in 2018. I had just my mom as my full-time assistant, and we did 88 deals and 33 million, just the two of us. So a friend of mine that I actually got my license with came back and was like, you know what, you should really kind of start growing something here. This isn't sustainable for like one person, you know? So we decided, let's start building the team idea, you know, brought in a TC, you know, just got the resources and then brought on some agents and kind of been working on it, because it is a transition to go from someone who's only done real estate to be a team leader. So it's been kind of a, you know, a work in progress for me. But you know, in 2020, when the pandemic hit, you know, we just went all blinders deep and, you know, pen down, pencil moving. We just blurred everything out and just focused on real estate. We were able to do 115 transactions for 46 million. And then last year, just moving full steam ahead, we did 140 at 60 million. So we're really working to kind of build this here. But what I wanted to share is I got my license in 2007. Pretty much the second they put the license in my hand, it was like, breaking news, the market has crashed, you know, and it was like, now what do we do, you know? So, and the only reason I got my license was to help my buddy secure a mortgage, because she was doing flips because the market had been good. But again, that market crashed and ended. So I actually had a job, but I was really fascinated after going through the course and everything for, you know, for what real estate had to offer. So I decided to kind of quit my job and jump in and do it full time. And, you know, again, this was back when if you told somebody you were doing real estate and you were holding a Dunkin' Donuts cup, they'd like drop some change into it. You know, they thought you, I mean, it was such a different world back then. And slowly but surely, I was, again, spending a lot and just not, the closings just weren't there. And I basically kind of, you know, a sale here, a sale there. And I basically got down to my last like $1,000 in my bank account, and my mortgage was coming due, or actually a couple hundred. And I did have a closing, but my broker at the time was going away on a fishing trip. And he said he could pay me when he got back, which would have been after my mortgage was due. And I was down to nothing. And I begged and pleaded, but he said, no, he wasn't going to pay me till after. So I remember at this point, I mean, I was living off of dented cans of green beans because they were only like 33 cents. And, you know, Smirnoff was the cheapest vodka you could have. So that was basically my diet as I was starting out in real estate. But I'll never forget having just sitting in that galley kitchen, just crying my eyes out because I had nothing left and the mortgage was due. And I remember getting enough liquid courage to call my mom and ask her to borrow, you know, the $1,000. And sure enough, you know, she was crying that I had that I was upset about it. And she did, and I paid the mortgage, and I've actually never looked back. And so I tell that story for two reasons. One, because you never fail if you keep getting up. You know, and I've been beaten down. As long as you, and at the time, I think I was reading Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, which if you haven't, I'm sure we all have, but we all know that book. And that was the perfect time for me to read it then. I'm sure if I read it now, it would come off as a completely different book. But what I really think changed everything for me is mindset is everything in this business, because after I hit rock bottom, I had some good years, I was doing some business, but then again, you hit that next glass ceiling. And so I was kind of in a funk, and there's just something off with the mindset. And I remember that KW had sent a Tony Robbins coach. And so I was in like my own funk. So I said, you know what? I signed up for this UPW where, you know, you walk on fire, you basically take all your limiting beliefs and crush them. And so I went there, and what I did with the limiting belief was I made it the fact that, you know, I was selling maybe 20 homes, 25, and I just could tell myself, I'll never be a mega agent. I don't know if I thought that they lived with unicorns or what it was, but so for whatever reason, I just didn't think I could be one. So when I went to the Tony Robbins, it was all about mindset and shifting everything and going from scarcity to abundance and getting over the fear. And I basically took that limiting belief and I crushed it. I left it on the ground out there in that stadium. I said, no. And I came back and I said, you know what? I'm going to sell 50 homes this year. This was 2016. So what I did was I hung up, because it's very visual, guys. And if there's so many visual examples I can give you too, but we hung up 50 green blank houses. And then every time we'd have a closing, we'd put a little sold sticker on it. And then me and my mom would jump up and down, you high 10, and then you hug. And it all kind of goes into your central nervous system that, you know, you are going to do 50. So I basically got to the last day of December that year, and I had the 4 closings, which was 47, 48, 49, and 50. And of course, there was one where it was a younger client, and she left the place a mess. And when they ever called me and said, Dakota, we can't close, and I'm like, oh, heck no, I am not doing this to do 49 houses. We ended up doing a holdback, figuring it out, and we ended up getting exactly 50. But that was when I had the mindset shift that, why not me? Why can't I sell 50? You know what I mean? Why can't I do that? And that the scarcity to the abundance comes into play so many times, I think, in this field. Again, people that are trying to save their way to $1 million. Like, I see people all the time trying to save a couple $100 to do their own postcards while I'm in the other room cranking off making $25,000 commissions because I got somebody else doing my postcards. Another scarcity abundance thing that really helped me with my mindset trick. I remember seeing somebody up on stage, and I know it's like a lot of us where everybody picks up the phone and you're looking for that $10,000 commission right on that call, right? And then when you don't and you get the meanie, you hang up and then you just don't even want to touch the phone. So it was kind of brought up to me one time where, how many phone calls does it take to get to the appointment? How many appointments does it take to get the listing? On and on until they get that commission check. It's a lot of phone calls, right? So I just don't do an exact math. So let's say this. So every time I make a phone call, I make $11.21. Eventually that $10,000 check is going to fall out, right? So boom. So somebody calls and they're as mean as they can be, slam the phone down. I just made $11.21. And all I had to do was get hung up. And if you have that mindset, that completely, because we don't go towards pleasure, we go away from pain. That's how we're all wired. So once I used that trick, it completely changed the way I was just, you stop taking it personal after a while. But that was the biggest thing, was to start making the calls, doing the activities. And I'll give you a couple quick visual examples that I use. So I already told you about the houses. So do that. I don't know if you guys know The Secret. That's what Tony Robbins is all about. So there's a check that you can print out from the universe to yourself. And the first year I did it, I basically put a very large number on there, and I ended up coming within $3,000 of it that year, because you just keep it posted in front of you in your office. So the next year I was going to do a huge number, and then that stupid little bit of limiting mindset got into me, it just caught me. So I wrote the check for the number a little bit lower, hung it up. I was having an awesome year. About September comes around, and there was this 1 week where it was the weirdest thing. Everything was falling apart. Everything that I touched fell apart. Weren't getting offers accepted, all this stuff. So I looked, and I was only about $2,500 from the check. So I was at the gym the next morning, and I'm racking my brain, and I'm like, oh my God, I wrote the check too low. That's why everything's starting to derail. So I went back, I ripped it up. I wrote the check for the number I should have wrote it for. No lie, I had my phone on my desk. As I'm taking my thumb off of the new check, I pull it away, my phone rings. It's one of the agents from one of the offers we didn't get accepted. Their buyers backed out, and he wanted to know if we still wanted it. And all of a sudden, everything started moving full-fledged ahead after I put the number that I should have believed in. And kind of going back on my limiting belief.
Wow, is what I have to say about everything that you're already delivering for us today, Dakota. Can I just go back to a couple of things, because there are so many powerful things, and I just want to reiterate them to make sure that you guys heard it and are writing down what I'm writing down, because this is, I truly believe in what you say, the visualization, the manifesting, the positivity. You said scarcity through abundance. Right. That was something that really helped you through what you were going through. Did you guys pick that one up too? Brooke, did you write that one down?
Oh, yes.
The visualization of not only the check, but the houses. How many of you guys are doing that out there right now? How many of you are visualizing how many families, houses, whatever you want to call that you want to help this year to get to where you want to go? I just love that. And then, the question that I wrote down was, what are you visualizing? And that's to everybody on this call. What are you visualizing? What are you looking at every single day to help you get to where you want to go? So Dakota, I think, there was another thing that I thought of when you were talking, and the $11, when somebody says no to you. There's a book called Go for No I don't know if you've read this. Have you read it?
Yep. It's a great
Yeah,
one.
that's exactly what you're talking about, right? So go for no is all about that, like getting over that personal issue that we have ourselves of somebody letting us down, and go for that no. So I suggest that too. Brooke, what did you get from this so far?
So it's back to basics, right? And we've done this in the MREA book club, but knowing how much you make per hour was the big one for me. So when you're picking up the phone, you're not saying, I didn't make any money. I just made $11.25 an hour. And one of the things I talk about often is we only celebrate our end results as agents, and we forget to celebrate those in-betweenies. We won't look at a full pipeline and congratulate ourselves for getting people to appointment stage or into a process. We're so fixated on the closing that as high production, high stress workers here in this world, we forget to celebrate the in-betweenies. And so every day you're celebrating doing what you're supposed to do by having that mindset of, I just made X, Y, and Z. And I think that's so important to help our agents through the mindset too, is you're not going to see a physical payout on every activity immediately. And that's what we need to celebrate all the things that happen in between and the small goals to get to the larger goal of putting that house up on the board and hugging your mom.
Right. And
Yeah, I love that. The leverage one, Dakota, was also another piece that I thought was hands down. Like, I hope everybody wrote that one down. You're paying somebody to go do your postcards for you, while others are spending that time doing it for themselves. When how much could they be doing if they weren't doing that? That would actually help them get business. So I love that. What else do you want to add to your story?
Well, the one thing I just want to kind of, and I tell the story now that you know the story. And again, I didn't know this at the time, but remember how I told you I was at rock bottom. So what happens is, and this is what we all do, and we talked about the manifestation, when you're newer in the business, or if you're not doing well, or whatever, I was doing this. I was watching the money going out of my bank account, and I was watching myself not have business, right? So what was I doing? I was putting out in the universe that is what you focus on expands. So I was focusing on my dwindling bank account. So guess what I kept doing? Spiraling lower and lower and lower. So I don't know if you guys picked up on it, but I learned it. I didn't know it at the time, but once I studied the brain and did the whole Tony thing, what happened that night when I had that thing and I had to pick up the phone and ask my mother, what's the first thing that happened, guys? I was focusing on that closing, because that closing was going to pay me to give my money. So I wasn't worried about what I didn't have anymore. I was focused on the next prize. And guess what happens? You get another listing. You get another listing. Now everything starts going forward because the universe is happening for us, not to us. I remember the first time I had 3 things fall apart one time in a week, and I was just out of my mind. And I literally out loud, I said, you know what, Dakota, if you don't want to have 3 things fall apart, then don't have 3 things together. Just keep throwing the balls in the air.
Wow.
So what does your daily routine look like, Dakota, to make sure that this happens, to visualize where you're going and keep going?
So, I mean, and this is, again, doing the team thing now. So I'm still kind of in this transition, because I'm used to come in, I'm in the office. I do a lot of like breakfast with champion things on Clubhouse, just positive stuff in the morning, education, motivation. And then, I'm usually in the office trying to start up calls by about like 8:30 or so. I try to keep most of my appointments in the afternoon. And if I don't have something, I'll just keep making the calls. We're having a lot of success with, I do long-term expireds, not the ones that just expire. Circle dialing, if you have something under agreement and it hasn't closed yet, and you're the one that tells them kind of how many offers were on there or whatever, people love to know that stuff. Now they're going out in the neighborhood and they're dropping your name. I always say my goal is I want my name coming out of somebody's lips about real estate at all times, everywhere. So the more seeds you can plant and conversations you can have.
I love that. I love that. So what are some podcasts, or what are you listening to or reading that you could share with our group that is helping you continue to grow your business and your team?
Well, what changed my life, again, was if you guys are on Clubhouse, it's called Breakfast with Champions. I don't even know how I ended up in there. Glenn Lundy has run this page. It is it's these millionaires and billionaires who, I mean, you ask any victim their story and they'll tell you, but these are all victors, and they all have worse stories than the victims. And that's what's so fascinating about it. And they'll come on, and there's life coaches, and there's just successful real estate people, automotive people, and they just tell them their stories. And it's just constant, like that Tony Robbins, that positive mindset stuff. So you just have such a you're just vibrating on the same wavelength of all the positive people, you know, so you get to come out of there feeling so energized. So yeah, it's Breakfast with Champions on Clubhouse.
Breakfast with Champions on Clubhouse. And I believe you have to get an invite to be on Clubhouse for those of you who don't have it. You could always get an invite from any one of us here or, you know, your peers. So make sure you let us know if you don't know what Clubhouse is, or if you need an invite on it, we're happy to help you with that. So that's a great one. Anything else that you want, any other book or podcast?
I mean, there's, you know, John Maxwell has some great leadership books for those of you that are looking to get into, if you are starting a team, because again, that is a huge transition from if you're just a full-time agent and then needing to know that you got to start doing some mentoring and things like that too, which is very, you know, it's just, and then the accountability to other people, you know. But yeah, I think, again, the Think and Grow Rich, I did a lot with John Maxwell, the leadership books. All his laws and principles are fascinating.
Awesome. Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. They are. So, all right, Dakota, any final like nugget you want to drop to everybody before we move on to our content that we deliver every week?
I would say, again, just show up. And again, a real quick story. I always tell these guys, look, there's the least amount of inventory we've ever seen in Massachusetts. I wake up, I think that's like shooting fish in a barrel. I would say when a listing is signed up, it's kind of like a little marriage, right? They're kind of off the market right now. There's 2,200 homes for sale in the entire state of Massachusetts. I say, if you can't get a date in that kind of singles pool, you got to go there and just dig. You know, don't sit back and wait for everybody else's lead generation to find buyers a home. Like, go find it. Just talk to people. I guarantee you, I don't want to sign in every yard because that means I can't go do it. So I like it up there where now I can go find it and I'm in control. Again, do you want to own a shoe store, or do you want to run around with somebody showing them a pair of shoes in 50 different stores?
Wow. Love that. Love it. All right. Thank you. Stay on with us, Dakota, because we're gonna give you some really great stuff.